Good morning, and welcome to A Better World with Julann and Fran. I'm Julann.
And I'm Fran. And this morning we're speaking with behavior analyst and hypnotherapist Akeem Jones. Welcome, Akeem.
Welcome.
Good morning. How are we doing, guys?
Well,
Great.
thank you. And would you talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing to make the world a better place?
Sure. I help individuals and organizations to predict, influence, and decode human behavior. And I guess I don't really see it as changing the world on a macro level, but more just on an individual level and to provide perspective on behavior that I think most people just don't consider.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Mhm.
Can you explain to people who don't know what a behavior analyst does, where your information comes from?
Sure. Yeah. So it's essentially there's two types of behavior analysis. There's applied behavior analysis, and then there's behavior analysis that's not applied. Applied behavior analysis is a science. It's a direct science where you take observations of behavior, you measure it, and you use that to change behavior to achieve a goal, essentially. And then you have behavioral analysis, which is a little bit more of an art than it is a science. So this is where government organizations, law enforcement, therapists to some degree used to assess behavior and make attributions on behavior. By attribution, I mean how we go about explaining it and inferring what it is that we are observing. So just like if you were a therapist, um, part of that, there's an attribution phase. There's an explanation of behavior, but it is subjective to some degree, although it's founded in science, right? So psychology, linguistics, those are sciences that we take to make observations and inferences for behavior, but it's still an art because to each individual therapist, to each individual analyst, you have to be able to use your clinical judgment. So that's that. The one we're covering today is behavior analysis, not applied. So we're talking about the ones where we're taking observations and we are making inferences based off of psychology, linguistics, neuroscience, but it is subjective to some degree.
Fascinating. How long have you been doing
Yes.
this?
So as a hypnotherapist, I'm actually a brand new hypnotherapist. For behavior analysis, I've been doing it for about 10 years. Um, I started when I was in the military, and I started kind of like a lot of people do, where you just start off reading books, you start off looking through the literature, kind of just exploring the whole thing. But then it became more serious as I was getting little bits and pieces of training throughout time. I was in the military and I was going through just even through basic training, you learn some just little, pieces of it. How to obtain situational awareness. What do pre-attack indicators look like? So that's kind of where it started for me throughout time. And I was 18 years old at that time, and I was becoming a little bit more fascinated. I ended up going to another training throughout time, and this was a more of a how to stay alive type of situation if you were ever captured by the enemy. And you had to learn rapport building with your captor. You had to learn making observations on okay, how do you look at pre-attack indicators, and then how do you try to de-escalate the situation? And I was going through a situation where we were in a scenario where our captor was, he was Middle Eastern, and I was showing the sole of my shoe towards him, and he said he was hinting to me, he was trying to help me out, but we were in character, and he said, where I'm from, you showing the bottom of your feet is extremely disrespectful. And he was trying to give me a hint, saying, be more aware of your surroundings, be more aware of the cultural situation, and do your homework more. And I think I was like 19 at the time. And I was kind of hooked at that point because I was like, it's very subtle, it's very small, but you know what, that really is important. And I did further my education after the military. I went to, I got my bachelor's in psychology. That really enhanced it. Went to HMI. That enhanced it to another degree as well. I did another graduate certification for psychological profiling, where you're profiling leaders around the world to predict and understand their behavior, to where now I do this as a business with my spouse, where we're providing training in human behavior.
That's so fascinating. There's a lot that you could, I'm sure you have a lot in the news that you can use your
100%. Yeah.
talents on.
100%. Yes, I do enjoy looking at the news and looking at interviews and things like that. Yes.
Yeah.
And do you ever find in your personal life when you're not really at work that you sometimes encounter people and you find yourself analyzing their behavior and sort of predicting what they might do next?
100%. I don't, I'm already saying it now, but I don't usually tell people that I do that. And I think most of the time it's more of unconscious. Whereas as soon as you understand certain concepts of behavior, it's hard not to identify them. What I don't do is consciously go around looking for any type of behavior. I think that'd be pretty exhausting. And plus sometimes I just want to just enjoy my time. But unconsciously, the more you perfect that craft, the more things just pop up and they kind of like, hey, I'm here. An example of this would be like a blink rate. Like an increase in blink rate tends to suggest an increase in stress, and the lower a blink rate is, tends to suggest calmness and or focus. So just that automatically, when we all talk to each other in personal conversations, if something comes up and an indicator like that, which could come up naturally, I'm like, okay, it popped up in my mind. Let's bring it back down and just enjoy the conversation. So sometimes, yes, it will kind of just be kind of overt.
Goodness. So, and you said that you're a brand new hypnotherapist,
Correct. Yes.
but you've been seeing clients already?
Well, okay, so no, I've only had a few clients, but I've actually changed kind of my focus. As I was starting to go down the route of hypnotherapy, I love the craft itself, but I think I wasn't getting the purpose of what I was looking for, because even when I was in the military, I was telling myself, I want to train people. That's what I want to do. That's kind of where my passion is at. And I was applying that to the clients that I had, and I still wasn't finding that part of me that was like, okay, I think this is what I want to do. It still wasn't there, and I've decided with my wife, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna shift focus to go back to my original goal, which is provide training. But I also have now the perspective of hypnotherapy and just hypnosis in general, and how powerful that is to be able to help people. So I'm going to use that as another training tool. I don't think my focus will be on hypnotherapy though.
Do you find, so you and your wife, you said, are doing more training now.
Mhm.
Do you find that there's a particular type of student that's attracted to what you're training?
Well, as of right now, actually, therapist. It's interesting. Yeah, because she's a psychotherapist and she does straight psychotherapy, but as she's going about her therapy, she uses a lot of the tools that we talk about together. So she's essentially doing therapy and training at the same time, and mine's just directly training. But yeah, I've noticed where the most people who are interested as of right now are therapists, hypnotherapists, traditional therapists. Obviously, this is useful in any realm, but that tends to be the audience right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Um, has learning hypnotherapy had any effect on the way that you're analyzing? The reason let me back up a little. I was wondering if you'd also studied at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, neuro-linguistic programming,
100%.
because that also sounds, that's very, can be very analytical in terms
hmm
of behavior and using that behavior to work with somebody else. Do you find yourself using NLP a lot?
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of crossover I've noticed with NLP and just general influence and persuasion. Honestly, the courses I provide, one of them is influence and persuasion. NLP is right up the alley of that. In fact, I think in some sense, therapy itself is influence and persuasion. I know a lot of people may not use that term or think of it in that way, but influence is the ability to affect change in behavior. I don't see what the difference is between that and the word influence. We are persuading people to some degree, and I think the most influential person in the world is ourselves. And if we're getting people to come to those aha moments, that to me is influence and persuasion. But yes, to answer your question, I believe, yeah, there's a significant crossover between NLP and traditional, what people think of as influence and persuasion. Yeah.
Gosh, it's also interesting. Um, do you find that it's ever, that there are people that are difficult to train?
Not that I can think of, no. I don't think of any individual that sticks or that stands out. Um, I think the only person who would be difficult to train is someone who okay, I lied. I think the only person who would be difficult to train would be those who come in with a large ego. Those who I've worked with either personally or professionally usually go in there with the idea of I already know everything about people. I don't need to learn anything, but yet I'm asking for training. So, I think in the behavioral world, there's this huge, I think it's any world really, but especially in the behavioral world where there's always somebody there who wants to one up you. I remember I was going through a course one time and we were talking about motivation, and most people understand, and if they don't, no problem, but most people understand like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when it comes to needs, that's a foundational tool, right? Um, in psychology. And I remember I was talking about it, and I was coming from a perspective of the experiences that I've had, but I didn't want to go in there with the idea of I knew everything. I was just providing my feedback, and I had a bit of confidence in what I was saying, whereas most people there, most were kind of just starting off. And I remember after I said my comment on it, somebody else comes in and states, "Yeah, well, that's just the beginning of it. You don't know the half of it." And that was an example of there's always somebody there with a fear, and that tends to happen from time to time where somebody's trying to one up you or outwit you to some degree. So that's the only type of person I would have trouble with.
And do you have an especially easy type of student?
Those who are extremely interested and just willing to learn. That's the number one. Outside of that, then it could be those in law enforcement, those in therapy. Those two tend to be very, very interested. But I think most people are very, very eager to just learn in general. I don't think I've had too many problems with anyone.
I would imagine it is very interesting to the, because we do these things anyway. We behave the way we behave. We do, and we often don't even realize that we're doing it. I mean,
Right.
I had no idea what you said earlier about the blinking.
Hmm.
I've noticed at times that there was one time I was watching sort of a performance. It was improv comedy, but they were doing a sketch together, and it was a
Hmm.
man, and I knew that they were very attracted to each other, but that the man was already married, and the woman knew that he was already married, and they knew that they
Hmm.
couldn't. And but he was talking to her, and as she was listening, her blinks became very sort of rapid.
Right.
And I didn't know what that meant. I thought, is she flirting with him? Or, because I've
Right.
always
Right.
heard of using, that you bat your eyelashes at someone.
Right. Right.
But maybe it meant that she was experiencing stress because she was feeling attracted to him and she knew that it couldn't go anywhere.
Perhaps so. And yeah, those are very great observations. Usually, when it comes to any type of nonverbal communication, what we do is we take clusters of them. Well, we take several things, but one of the factors we take is our clusters, which means two or more behaviors suggesting the same message. And this could be two verbal behaviors, two nonverbal behaviors, or a combination of the two. So let's just say we're looking for stress. And increase in blink rate, of course, could be one of them. Another one could be where the facial color or skin coloration changes, where one of the two things will happen under stress. Either one, there's paleness, and this is caused by vasoconstriction, where the blood vessels constrict and it causes blood flow to decrease, or vasodilation, where blood flow is increased into the face, causing redness, or most people think of as blushing or flushing, right? So these
Right.
different things, that would be two more indicators suggesting the same message, and that would increase your confidence.
Yes, as one who blushes easily.
Yeah,
Are there
we're
any
fair, so
exercises you can do to keep your blood vessels
Yeah,
constricted?
you know, that's probably more of a
think of
hypnotherapy
something
thing.
else. No.
I would imagine that's more of a I guess if we could do more of that hypnotherapy process where maybe we're calming ourselves down with breathing. But aside from that, it's a very difficult difficult tool there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your advice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ay, ay, ay.
Um, all right. So let's see. So you mentioned you work with law enforcement sometimes.
Well, so not yet. So I worked with military at the time, but I couldn't say law enforcement. Law enforcement would be the ideal target audience, but I'd be lying to say if I worked with them currently. At the time when I was in the military, I'd share this information everywhere, and that would be more that professional realm of military, not law enforcement just yet. So if I mislead you, I apologize.
No,
Did you find that you used it more with the people in charge or more with your fellow soldiers? Do you know what I mean? Was it something
Huh.
that you
Great question. I think it was pretty even. When it comes to my leadership style, when I was a sergeant, and so I was kind of like in the middle, you know, I was with the troops, but at the same time, I also had the knowledge of the head honchos, if you want to call it that. And I'd use, you know, a lot of rapport building with my guys, um, and to understand their intentions and their emotions. A lot of times, you know, they can be pretty reserved. So, you know, especially in the military, it's not exactly a touchy feely organization. So I think it'd be great to help them out in those moments where they really needed it. I think a lot of the influence though came between myself and my leaders. There's I can give you time where um, it, I had a leader who I won't say his name, of course. I had a leader where he had a need for dominance. Now, a need for dominance is consistently trying to control a situation, and this person tended to use that. It didn't matter if it was through coercion, it didn't matter if it was just through power in any way possible. And a good way to fulfill those needs, well, one is to identify what they are, but two is to be able to fulfill them in a way that isn't so overt. So if somebody has a need for power, I want to make that person feel as powerful as possible, at least in the situation that I was in. I'm not gonna say that for every time, but in that situation, I wanted him to feel like he was in control. So a lot of times you could just ask for simple advice. It's like, you know, I'm finding this situation difficult, and because he wanted me to do something. I'm finding the situation difficult, and I'm not understanding how I can do this. But I would love your advice. I know you've been doing this for many years, and you know, I greatly appreciate it. Um, and I didn't want to fight the situation. I want to kind of just roll with it. Um, and he had a need for dominance and a need for intelligence, where again his intelligence and his power was everything. So that was a situation where um, I understood the dynamics of that situation where a lot of people wouldn't, and it's natural to provide some type of resistance towards that. And I was able to make that relationship work as long as I was there. So that's an example of how, you know, one person could use it.
get
wow.
them on your side? That's a smart thing to do.
Yeah,
Break down
and
the barrier. Right,
absolutely. Yeah, it allows the person to feel that he is in the situation that he wants to be
right,
in.
Right.
right.
Right. And
Calms
I
them down.
Yeah, exactly. And in a way, it's kind of like what is it, pacing and leading, you know, where before we start trying to influence the situation, we kind of match it. We get on that level. And
Right.
I think that you know that helps out a lot. Like I said, a lot of crossovers.
Yeah, yeah. And we always like what is familiar to us. And
Hmm.
since his need was to be in charge and you placed him in a position where he felt that way, then that was
Right.
familiar to him. So that's great.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes him more open to what the message that you're trying to give him. And
Exactly.
hopefully that helps his behavior going forward.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll have more success if you know, do it in a teamwork kind of way, just like you did. You know what I mean? Get him on
Exactly.
your side, and then he's more open.
100% agree. There's something that happens. Well, there's a few things that happen, but one of the ones that I've noticed the most is I'm not sure if you're aware of impression management or if the audience is, so I'll just explain it. There's something known as impression management, where it's how we control or influence the perceptions that people have of us. And it's to be seen in a better light. So like if you've ever, before having guests come over, you start cleaning and purging the house, acting like you don't even live there, right? It better be like spotless. That's a form of impression management, or how we present ourselves online in a good light rather than looking at our shortcomings. That's another form of impression management, and happens all the time. And it doesn't need to be people that you know, or I'm sorry, don't know. It could be people that you know as well. Parents do this at times, where if a parent doesn't want to seem insecure or not knowledgeable in something towards their kids, they might act like they know or just play it cool, but in reality, they're freaking out inside, right? So we all do it. Um, and one of the biggest things that I've noticed with people is, especially when you're meeting someone for the first time, is there's something known as dominance and status hierarchies, whereas we're trying to establish dominance or status through forms of superficial characteristics, and these characteristics tend to be, uh, oh my god, prestigious job titles, experience, and age. Those are the top three things that people use to try to essentially one up other people. I know in the military, I worked with a lot of people who are older, and it doesn't matter what rank they are. And a lot of times you'll hear yeah, well, kid, this is how it works. Or I've been around the block or two. And those are actually superficial characteristics. They don't necessarily mean anything. You could be 100
Right.
years old and it doesn't give you a doctor's experience in how to perform surgery. But it's also the same thing with prestigious titles, where it's, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm in special forces. And this must mean that I know more than you, that I can perform better than you, and that you are submissive to me. When in reality, the most confident and strong, emotionally strong people are the ones who don't feel the need to do any of that.
That's right.
So that's the number one thing I've noticed with people. And it's time and time again. It doesn't matter what environment you're in. Parents do it to their children, instructors do it to their students. People just do it. It's pretty common.
Too bad.
It is unfortunate. So I know that you're dealing with behavior analysis, but what you just mentioned made me think about in terms of energy, the energy that you present. If you're confident in your age and your title and your education or whatever it may be, and you just be,
Right,
which I suppose is a behavior in itself, you present an energy that doesn't feel, people are, well, one hopes people won't try and compete with that because they'll just know that
right,
you are who you are, that
right.
sort of thing.
Yeah,
So,
I totally agree.
yeah. But do you find yourself dealing with energy much, or is that sort of,
No, I don't tend to find myself with that. I don't disagree with it. I just think that for me, especially with the audience that I tend to have, I think I'm just a little bit more analytical. But I definitely appreciate when people are a little bit more intuitive. I think it provides a little bit of a different perspective, because although I'm a little bit more analytical, I think there's just more to the world than just science, and than just direct, I guess, what you call is information. I think there's part of the world that requires a little bit of a flexible dynamic. I know my sister, she's extremely intuitive, and she has perspectives that sometimes I just don't even consider until she says it. Um, it may not be a great law enforcement tool, right? And then in that scenario where, perhaps like life and death, they want a little bit more of a rigid perspective, but that doesn't mean that it's not useful, right?
right?
Especially in therapy, where there's just no black and white sometimes. It's sometimes it just requires a little bit more. So to answer your question, no, I don't tend to use that.
Okay. Okay, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do it?
So that would be difficult right now. So
Oh,
because I said I'm shifting my focus, my web or our website, my MOS is in the works as we speak. We submitted it a couple weeks ago. It's probably gonna take about a month. I can say what my website is. It's right now it's There's no .com, but I'm saying that the company name is called Applied Behavior Strategies. In the HMI AHA Facebook page, I'm gonna promote that at that point. But there's no actual link as of right now, given that it's in the works. So there's technically no way of reaching us. The old website, they'll go on there, but it would almost be irrelevant. But the old website is thmtherapy.com.
Okay.
And if there was one thing you would want the audience to take away from today, something that they could do to help them, what would it be?
Mm. Wow, that's a great question. I would probably say just take more time to think. I think the biggest mistake that we take when it comes to understanding people is to over assume or be overly confident in what we think we know about people based off of our past experiences. You know, and that makes sense to naturally want to do that. But I think there's so many dynamics to behavior that we overlook. And the number one way to understand people outside of assuming is to just listen to what they have to hear and attempt to listen between the lines and then clarify the meanings of what people are saying. So overall, just take more time to think.
Yeah, and listen, you're right.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. You said earlier that you knew you wanted to train, and I can just imagine you doing it. You must be excellent at it.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. I
Yeah,
love it.
you've got a great presentation. You've
You
got
do.
that wonderful sense of yourself and your knowledge, and you're also open to questions and other points of view, and you explain yourself very well. So I think you must be
Well,
an
thank you.
excellent trainer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
much success.
Yes, much
Thank you.
success to you. Okay, so this has been another episode of A Better World with Julann and Fran. Please like and share this video far and wide, and please join us again. So
Thank
long
you.
for now.